Surely everyone has heard of Jaws, the iconic movie directed by Steven Spielberg in 1975 that terrified an entire generation. The film centered on a giant man-eating shark that unleashed a bloody frenzy lasting 9 days. Contrary to what many believe, the shark was not actually named Jaws, but rather Bruce. However, most people still refer to him as Jaws. Besides his name, his classification is another aspect many misunderstand. It's common for people to think that Jaws was a megalodon or some type of fictional shark, when in reality it was based on a great white shark, though a much larger one than any recorded specimen. There's no doubt that a megalodon would have been a much deadlier and more menacing Jaws, given its enormous size and appetite for whales and large fish, including great white sharks themselves. But what if Jaws hadn't been a shark? What if it had been a whale? You might think the most likely candidate would have been a rogue orca, or perhaps Mocha Dick, a giant white sperm whale that attacked ships and partially inspired the book Moby Dick. And while both would have been interesting choices, the more accurate answer wouldn't be a whale from today, but one that roamed the oceans 5 million years ago and had an appetite so voracious that it rivaled even the megalodon. This terror of the deep was Leviathan, a whale that may be the most terrifying creature you could ever encounter in the ocean. Paleontologists didn't take long to realize this after its discovery in 2008, when by a stroke of luck, a group stumbled upon a partial giant skull in the coastal deserts of Peru. This skull was severely damaged, but preserved most of the upper jaw, parts of the lower jaw, and some teeth. With just these fossils, it was clear this wasn't a small animal, but a massive sea creature, leading researchers to name it Leviathan, after the biblical sea monster. Although Leviathan was undoubtedly a sea monster, it wasn't a biblical demon, but rather a whale, unlike any other seen before. Superficially, however, Leviathan did have some similarities to the modern sperm whale. Studies on its fossils, which analyzed its structure and shape, found that it belonged to the same superfamily of cetaceans, sometimes known as sperm whales. However, unlike the modern sperm whale, it didn't belong to the same family, leaving scientists uncertain about exactly which family Leviathan belonged to. As for its size, Leviathan was a colossal aquatic creature, one of the largest animals of its time. Currently, paleontologists believe adults could grow between 13.5 and 17.5 meters, 44-57 feet, in length, with the upper length being more likely if its growth pattern resembled that of the extinct Zygophysator, while the lower length would be more realistic if it grew like the modern sperm whale. However, the general consensus is that Leviathan scaled more like Zygophysator, making it longer than the largest known mosasaur and quite similar in length to the largest shark of all time, the Megalodon. But Leviathan wasn't just long, it was also extremely robust, with adults possibly weighing over 60 tons, 30 times the weight of an average car, and approximately 10 times the weight of a medium-sized male orca. There's no doubt that Leviathan was no joke, and given that it was a sperm whale, you might think it was indistinguishable from modern whales, but this couldn't be further from the truth, as Leviathan had one sinister feature that made it unique. Leviathan's most terrifying secret became evident as soon as it opened its mouth, revealing some of the scariest teeth of all time. Considering that its skull alone could measure over 3 meters, 9.8 feet, long, Leviathan possessed an impressive number of these teeth, 40 in total, 22 in the upper jaw and 18 in the lower jaw. Each of these teeth was incredibly intimidating and absolutely massive, reaching up to 36 centimeters, 1.2 feet from top to bottom. This gave Leviathan the largest teeth of any predatory animal, excluding tusks. These teeth also dwarfed those of other toothed whales and even made the teeth of the T-Rex look small in comparison. Of course, when your jaw is whale size, sheer size alone isn't enough. That's why, like its body, Leviathan's teeth were also extremely thick, with a width of 10 centimeters, 4 inches, in the middle before tapering at the top, creating incredibly sharp points that allowed the teeth to penetrate deep into flesh, causing massive wounds. This design clearly suggests that Leviathan was not a peaceful giant, leading scientists to classify it as a macroraptorial sperm whale, a group of now extinct whales believed to be hypercarnivorous creatures that fed on a wide variety of large marine animals, including other marine mammals and, yes, even other whales. Leviathan's teeth did not discriminate. But the shape of the teeth wasn't the only thing that allowed this behemoth to hunt virtually anything. Their arrangement within the jaw added another insidious aspect to Leviathan's bite, its ability to rip off huge amounts of flesh. Essentially, each tooth was angled in a specific way to create an overlapping effect with each bite, turning its bite into what was essentially a gigantic pair of scissors that sliced cleanly through its prey. This cutting effect can be clearly seen in the wear on the teeth, as their sides show scraping marks, indicating how the teeth rubbed against each other when closing the mouth around prey. Besides these scissor-like bites, Leviathan's jaw was specialized for killing, with deeply rooted teeth indicating that its bite was designed to withstand colossal struggles with large animals that generated immense force in their attempts to escape. If you need more proof that Leviathan was a giant killer, just look at the overall construction of its skull. It's evident that it had highly flexible jaws, allowing it to open its mouth to an impressive degree, so much so that Leviathan holds the record for having the largest bite of any tetrapod ever known. And of course, this bite wasn't just large, but also powerful. We know this because the temporal fossae in its skull had a large space between them, suggesting that in life it had well-developed temporal muscles, which are the most powerful muscles between the jaw and skull in an animal, playing a crucial role in bite force. Unfortunately, no extensive study has been conducted on Leviathan's bite force, but it's not far-fetched to assume that it bit with more power than smaller relatives like Zygophysiter, another macroraptorial genus that measured less than half the size of Leviathan and still had a bite force of over 10,000 newtons. With this in mind, it's fair to say that Leviathan at least matched that power, giving it enough strength to pierce through flesh and bone with ease. In fact, many believe that 10,000 newtons is far too small a figure for this giant predator, and some rough estimates compare its bite to that of a T-Rex, which could have literally crushed a car with its bite. With such a deadly jaw and grotesque teeth, Leviathan hunted a plethora of megafauna animals in its environment, which, besides whales, included a mix of sharks, dolphins, seals, and large fish, giving it an ecological niche somewhat similar to that of an orca, but on a much larger scale. A group of researchers found that an adult Leviathan could have taken down prey up to 10 meters, 33 feet long, or weighing 11 tons. From a weight perspective, this essentially made Leviathan a predator capable of taking down any animal in its environment at some point in the animal's life, with only a few specimens surpassing the size barrier in their adult stage. Once a prey had been taken down, Leviathan's ferocity didn't stop, as it had a voracious appetite that required hundreds and hundreds of kilograms of meat a day just to maintain its stature. There's no doubt that Leviathan's size and jaws made it one of the most lethal predators of all time. But when you live in prehistoric waters, it's always good to have extra tools, and that's why Leviathan almost certainly had amazing echolocation abilities, just like all toothed whales. This colossus possessed a gigantic cranial cavity, suggesting the presence of a spermaceti organ, a series of oil and wax reservoirs separated by connective tissue that, in modern sperm whales, plays a crucial role in sound generation. This organ would have allowed Leviathan to do incredible things, such as detecting animals, communicating with others, and possibly even stunning its prey. Given the unusually large size of Leviathan's cranial cavity, it's likely that its organ was also unusually large, which could have enabled it to detect prey from a distance of up to 14 football fields. This gave it a huge advantage in the ocean, where the water can often be quite murky. Moreover, despite the organ in question being composed of wax and oil, which are individually quite soft, the structure as a whole was flexible yet tough, especially when considering Leviathan's layer of blubber. This surprising durability turned Leviathan's gigantic nose into a second weapon, a built-in battering ram that very well could have been its preferred weapon when starting a hunt. This hypothesis is based on how sperm whales used to sink large whaling ships, not by biting them, but by ramming them, which sometimes led to the loss of ships weighing over 200 tons. Such a weapon in a whale that already had giant thick teeth might seem a bit excessive, but it likely helped it become a highly successful apex predator with a profound impact on marine environments, hunting anything that dared to inhabit near the surface. Considering its size and insatiable appetite, a single adult Leviathan could have completely altered marine communities. However, it's highly likely that it was rarely alone. Leviathan is presumed to have been a highly social creature, much like other whales. This assumption is based on what we know about living whales today, most of which are gregarious creatures that often travel in groups. Modern sperm whales, for example, share this lifestyle, with mothers and calves typically forming matriarchal groups, while adult males can form bachelor pods composed of other males of similar size and age. Imagining a group of leviathans would be an impressive sight, though they wouldn't be the only apex predators to worry about, as leviathans shared the waters with another equally legendary aquatic beast, the megalodon, the largest shark to have ever existed. Having two colossi living side by side and occupying a similar ecological niche has made the relationship between leviathan and megalodon an extremely popular topic among paleontologists, both amateur and professional. Unfortunately, there is no direct evidence that these two giants ever faced off, but multiple theories have been proposed about how such confrontations might have played out. First of all, we know that Megalodon had some advantages over Leviathan, particularly its size. Some of the largest estimates of Megalodon depict it as a shark that could have been several meters or feet longer than Leviathan and potentially weighed over 100 tons. Additionally, Megalodon had a stronger bite, which has been estimated at around 182,000 newtons, much stronger than that of the T-Rex. With these two advantages, it's likely that the largest Megalodons didn't have much to worry about and were technically capable of taking down any whale, which they did either by attacking the tails and fins or by using stealth to launch a massive attack from below. But size and bite force don't tell the whole story, as Leviathan, being lighter, would have been much more agile, giving it a good chance to escape, especially when considering its impressive sonar capabilities. Moreover, if we assume that most Leviathans lived in groups, the tables could turn. 3 mature Leviathans together would outweigh the largest known Megalodon. With several Leviathans ramming or biting, it would be a horrible situation for any creature, regardless of size. It should also be understood that most Megalodons didn't weigh 100 tons, as a study that examined 544 teeth suggested an average size of 10.5 meters, 34 feet, which further levels the playing field. Additionally, we only have limited remains of Leviathan, consisting of a handful of teeth and a skull, so who knows how big it could truly get. Be that as it may, both were undoubtedly deadly apex predators, capable of inflicting massive damage on both their prey and each other. Thanks to fossil remains, we know that this hypercarnivore managed to establish considerable dominance in parts of the southern hemisphere, concentrating along the coasts of Peru and Chile. And when we include fossils that probably belong to Leviathan, though they haven't been 100% confirmed, its range expands to North America, even reaching South Africa and Australia. In these environments, individuals showed a preference for coastal waters and bays, where they were surrounded by a wide range of marine life. Among the most abundant animals in its habitat were other whales, such as pygmy sperm whales, dolphins, baleen whales, giant beaked whales, primitive orcas, porpoises, tusked whales, and other raptorial members like Acrophysidae. Although it seems like a world dominated by whales, many other animals were lurking, including fish, penguins, seals, sea turtles, marine crocodiles, and even aquatic sloths. Sharks also thrived in this area, with one of the most common being our well-known Megalodon, though it wasn't the only dangerous shark. Other inhabitants included requiem sharks, short-fin makos, broad-toothed makos, cow sharks, sand tiger sharks, and even great whites. With sharks, crocodiles, and raptorial whales, Leviathan's home was definitely a place you'd want to avoid, and you would have had to avoid these waters for quite some time, as Leviathan existed for millions of years, specifically between 9.9 and 5 million years ago, giving it a range that extended through the Miocene and a small part of the early Pliocene. Since its existence occurred primarily during the Miocene, many people have wondered why this period seemed to produce so many giant aquatic carnivores. The answer lies partly in the warmer climate experienced during this time, which also played a role in the overall diversification of mammals, including those living on land and our own ancestors. This increase in animal size during this period ultimately influenced the evolution of Leviathan itself, as the existence of larger animals made the emergence of a giant hypercarnivorous whale more viable. For a while, at the beginning of the Pliocene, this giant design was still feasible, but at some point extinction struck. As happened with many animals of the time, a cooling world is thought to be the main culprit, though it wasn't simply a case of the waters becoming too cold for Leviathan. What paleontologists believe happened is that as the Earth cooled and polar ice caps grew, they churned up the seafloor, helping zooplankton populations increase, which in turn caused baleen whales to balloon in size. Since these whales were an integral part of Leviathan's diet, this massive increase in size made them much more difficult to hunt, thus putting pressure on Leviathan populations. Additionally, lower sea levels might have trapped and doomed entire populations in bays. To make matters worse, Globicephalini, whose members are predatory dolphins, also emerged. All these changes together proved to be too much, and Leviathan disappeared. And while in some ways this may seem sad, its disappearance might have been for the best, as beaches would have been much harder to enjoy knowing that a Leviathan was somewhere in the ocean. But there's no denying it would have been incredible to see one of these giants from a safe distance, and preferably on a very, very large boat. That's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, leave your like and subscribe to support me to create more content. See you soon in the next video.